General Electric and these guys that are sucking in those big bucks every month from you for your electric bill, the last thing in the world they want you to know about is Tesla's original concept 75 years ago of how you could get free electricity transmitted through the air, through the ground, and just turn appliances on and wouldn't cost anybody anything. No transmission cables. All these stupid wires all over the country wouldn't even have to be there. Uh-oh, that would mean a lot of money out of the pockets of these characters, so don't hold your breath on that one.
And that's the first apparent irony of this revolution. Instead of giving us more free time, it's done absolutely the reverse. So we just didn't see it coming as we raced to sign on, lemmings rushing at the latest gadgetry. But our leisure time has actually decreased from 26.2 hours a week in 1973 to 16.6 hours in 1987, as we all try to process and assimilate the daily deluge these machines spew forth. 11,000 specialized magazines and fancily packaged periodicals hit the mails each year. Publishers print 1,000 new titles a day, and the total sum of printed information doubles every 8 years. Information? That's probably too strong a word, implying as it does that we're being informed, when in fact mostly what we're doing is being flooded with factoids and data that do very little in the way of increasing our real understanding. A full 40% of the American workforce is now daily engaged in the churning out and distributing of this data, and 40% of business investments go into the so-called technology of information. So that instead of becoming more creative or competitive in this country, we've created an incestuous cesspool, all of us little ants tethered to our terminals, modeming and memoing and faxing and beeping each other. Technoprize in the wilderness. Anyone out there? Anyone home? Here's a present for you, a bouquet of factlets, a fine array of stats. Hello? Hello? Are you there? And that, of course, is the ultimate irony. All these tools of communication have made us less communicative in any real sense and less compassionate. So that when we look up from our various machines and screens every once in a while, glassy-eyed and stiff of neck and a little lonesome, we're stunned at the world we live in now and at the incredible consequences of a revolution we all left to join. A revolution that has wired us up to each other while disconnecting us all at the same time.
Looking, easy to apply nails, pre-colored in 7 luscious hues. Just
our impulses are being redirected. We are living in an artificially induced state of consciousness that resembles sleep.
Oh, goddamn hacker, that second damn night that asshole's cut in.
The movement was begun 8 months ago by a small group of scientists who discovered, quite by accident, these signals being sent through...
Things giving me a headache. Yeah, tell me about it. Us took the hackers months to figure out how to do this.
The poor and the underclass are growing. Racial justice and human rights are non-existent. They have created a repressive society, and we are their unwitting accomplices. Their intention to rule rests with the annihilation of consciousness. We have been lulled into a trance. They have made us indifferent to ourselves, to others. We are focused only on our own gain. Please understand, they are safe as long as they are not discovered. That is their primary method of survival. Keep us asleep, keep us selfish, keep us sedated.
The way we see it, CERT is the new way to fall asleep. Counting sheep, the old way. The CERT perfect sleeper. Supreme comfort, gets me to sleep fast. Counting sheep, slow, boring. You gotta be new, now, happening.
Gonna put you to sleep, gonna put you to sleep. With the sheep, with the sleep, and there's no OP. Gonna put you to sleep.
feel the difference the moment you lie down.
I'm desperate and I need someone.
Yeah, well, don't we all?
And I hear you're the best. And I need the best private investigator I can find. Please.
Wait, this is not an office, okay? And even if it was, I would be closed. So I won't tell you to come back tomorrow. Just don't bother coming back.
I'm not asking you to do me a favor. It's just that if you don't help me, lives will be ruined.
Mary, I've seen you in action. You don't need my help to ruin people's lives.
Listen.
They are dismantling the sleeping middle class. More and more people are becoming poor. We are their cattle. We are being bred for slavery. The revolution.
Not again.
We cannot break their signal. Our transmitter is not powerful enough. The signal must be shut off at the source. We have...
Daddy, I have a headache.
Me too, honey.
Enter the house of atomic funk and get your freak on. Order this collection online at MusicSpace.com.
Really happening from Meadowbrook Road. Traffic is moving nicely here by exit 23 on the Connecticut Turnpike. Into Westport now, Sasko Creek Road checks in problem-free. Traffic seems to be doing quite well in both directions.
Hello, I'm Alex Jones, and I'm a radio and television host based in Austin, Texas. And for many years, I've been exposing the criminal activities of the global elite, otherwise known as the New World Order. We're going to show you the result. The military out serving search warrants in 77 Texas counties. That's right, civilian search warrants. We're not talking about Mexico or Russia. We're talking about Texas, USA. The military running checkpoints in Granger County, Tennessee, random on the nation's highways. Not looking for spies or axe murderers. No, just making sure that you haven't been out drinking and driving or using drugs. It's a drug war, you know. Then we'll go into who's bringing in the drugs, the CIA, and who they're working for, the big foreign banks. My friends, all of the key indicators of a nation in massive decline are being manifest in front of our eyes right now, as we speak. In North Carolina, the FBI, the BATF, and Pinkerton Security Corporation have created a public-private operation with the state. They plan to make it go worldwide, not just nationwide, in the next few years, implementing the global government through the public schools, through the government training centers. They have the children tattling on their parents, their neighbors, their peers in school, and getting rewards for it, CD players, toys, and discount credit cards. My friends, this is the battle for the Republic. It's a hardcore battle that we've all got to face, that we've all got to get involved in. Just a few weeks ago, in March of 2000, Admiral Moore, former chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, called for all Americans, black, white, young, old, it doesn't matter, to engage in the information war or we're going to lose our country. The globalists see this nation as a shining jewel, to be subdivided, to be strip-mined socially. It's time for all Americans to wake up, to energize and get involved. It's a battle for the Republic against dehumanization and total slavery. Get involved and be part of history.
Phone dies. I was worried about losing contact with him just because we won't get any more information.
Justin is running out of options. With no cell phone, the odds of finding John alive plummet. Even as darkness falls, Justin and his team continue their frantic search. But it's too dark to spot anything on the ocean. John is forced to spend a third lonely night at sea.
Back in Washington.
Michael Honest joins us now with that story and his preview of headline news tonight.
Hey guys, have a great weekend.
Thank you.
Well, yeah, we'll talk about that. The president's multi-billion-dollar request coming under intense scrutiny. Coming up, John King will break down those numbers in a live report from the White House. Also tonight, a first-hand account of the situation in Iraq. Is the media's account of what's happening there an accurate one? One of the many questions. In just a few minutes, we'll have a chance to ask General Don Shepard, who just returned from a Pentagon-sponsored trip from Iraq. You won't want to miss that interview.
Yesterday's right to peaceably assemble has given way to a declaration of civil emergency and mass arrests today.
Your conduct is in violation of state and city law. The stance of the city and the state is vastly different, with State Patrol and National Guard backing up the Seattle police. Innocent bystanders walking along the sidewalk are getting tear gassed, and while the governor made assurances this morning things are back to normal, they're definitely not.
The state of emergency was just an hour old.
The state of emergency that they've been training for so long to deal with. Who was behind it? What caused it in Seattle in December of 1999? The World Trade Organization meeting. The riots, the supposed riots, and the military and police working together to keep the public safe from all that evil rabble. We're going to go in depth. This is a perfect textbook example of problem, reaction, solution. Training the public that the wheeled tanks keep us safe. But first, we have to examine the World Trade Organization, the WTO, to understand what happened in Seattle. The World Trade Organization was created in 1995 by the same institutions, the same powerful central banks that created the United Nations and empowered it in the late 1940s. They seek to destroy national sovereignty, not just in America, but worldwide, and rein it in under the control of a huge dictatorial machine. And their track record is clear. They are nothing more than servants of the corrupt global establishment, serving their every whim, dividing up the property on the global plantation. If one reads the different trade agreements that have been pushed by this World Trade Organization, energized in the last 5 years to world prominence, one realizes that it's nothing but a tool for consolidation. There's one catch. In recent years, the WTO, since its inception, has come across incredible opposition worldwide because of its obvious authoritarian implications. That's a hard thing to deal with when you've got highly motivated people that have real complaints and valid issues. How do you deal with it? Well, you simply call in your friends. The left coast communists posing as anarchists under Delta Force direction.
Broke windows at the Gap, they're smashing windows at McDonald's, they're dumping over garbage cans. And they are very angry again and hostile. We're seeing more clashes with other protesters telling them to stop because they're giving everyone a bad name. None of the protesters, the legitimate protesters down here, want any of this kind of action. And they are very angry.
So right now, knocking on the newspaper.
Megan, any sign yet of police trying to track them down?
No riot police anywhere. They're breaking the bank window here at U.S. Bank. We got to get out of here. We're going to run up the street because if they see us, they attack us. And so we're keeping a safe distance away from them.
Several police officers have told us because they were assigned to control the protest crowds, they weren't allowed to break ranks and to stop the black bloc. So the group just continued destroying property for nearly an hour.
What's wrong with this picture? If the police are supposedly there to protect the public and property, then why? Why did state police, Seattle police, as well as the feds, stand back and allow the anarchists en masse to run around and throw bottles at police, cones, rocks, you name it, and assault private property as well as members of the general public? Because they needed someone to demonize the rest of the good demonstrators. Now, my friends, this is an old tactic throughout history. If you have opposition, you simply demonize them by creating your own crisis, your own massacre or terrorist bombing or incident, and then blaming it on your political opponents. When you have 50, 60,000 peaceful demonstrators out exposing the corruption, how do you neutralize them? Well, you simply send in your boys to create a crisis, to offer a solution. Now, we're not saying that local police knew what was going on. Certainly not. They just were following their orders, which is frightening in and of itself, to let a bunch of anarchists, 30 or 40 of them tops, run around and burn and break things because they were ordered to do so. We're going to play you some little clips from newscasts and some amateur video. Then we'll move into even more evidence that this was a government action. You see, the anarchists were actually given their own operations base, even during the curfew and civil emergency that was declared after their attacks. boy, that was a good excuse to clear the streets. But first, watch just a small snippet of a local newscast that, of course, never went nationwide. Can't have the people finding out about what really happened. It's very revealing how the police just go along and allow this criminal activity. Then we'll get into who was behind it and how most of the anarchists are just useful idiots working for their provocateur bosses, and on into the state of emergency that was declared, and how not just Seattle but the nation was trained to accept armored personnel carriers and police in black uniforms, as well as National Guard being directed by the FBI and the Justice Department and Delta Force is all part of living in a safe society to, well, you know, protect us from those dangerous anarchists.
And whether you call them freedom fries or French fries, it seems some folks are taking a fast from the fast food favorite. Dr. Marcia Cohn will make a house call on that one. You know, the potato and...
Our projections show that by the year 2025, not only America, but the entire planet will be under the protection and the dominion of this power alliance. The gains have been substantial, both for ourselves and for you, the human power elite. You have given us entree to the resources we need in our ongoing quest for multidimensional expansion. And in return, the per capita income of each of you here tonight has grown, and this year alone, by an average 39%.
Isn't it lovely, darling?
And I've just received word that our forces have won a major victory. The underground terrorist network has been destroyed here on the West Coast. We are off crisis alert. The situation is normal again.
How you doing, boys? I didn't know you'd been recruited. Welcome aboard.
Earth is our stepping stone for a
You know, you boys really should have dressed for the party now you can afford it.
I can call 24 hours a day. That helps.
Call 1-800-THE-CARD and apply now. There's never been a better time to be a card member.
What's happening today, Monday, for one day only? White Plains Dodge on Route 119 is offering you $8,000 for your...
Colonel North, in your work at the NSC, were you not assigned at one time to work on plans for the continuity of government in the event of a major disaster?
Mr. Chairman, I believe that question touches upon a highly sensitive and classified area, so may I request that you not touch upon that, sir.
I was particularly concerned, Mr. Chairman, because I read in Miami papers and several others that there had been a plan developed by that same agency, a contingency plan in the event of emergency that would suspend the American Constitution. And I was deeply concerned about it and wondered if that was the area in which he had worked. I believe that it was, but I wanted to get his
May I most confirmation. respectfully request that that matter not be touched upon at this stage. If we wish to get into this, I'm certain arrangements can be made for an executive session.
And tragically, the only member who got close was Jack Brooks, and he was stopped by the chairman. But the truth of the matter is that, yes, you do have those standby provisions, and the plans are there, and the statutory emergency plans are there, whereby you could, in the name of stopping terrorism, apprehend, invoke the military, and arrest Americans and hold them in detention camps.
For not to call them, have been downgraded a couple of times in the last 2 weeks.
Well, that's encouraging.
You like that?
Premiere of The Handler on CBS, where you'll see a kinder, gentler Joey Pants than perhaps you're used to. We talked to him this week and asked him about that Emmy moment.
It was about the journey.
Now,
the idea is to heat and modulate the lower ionosphere, which in turn modulates the upper ionosphere, and this modulation creates, again, we're talking about what you're seeing with this globe, what it creates, in effect, a giant virtual antenna in the ionosphere. This synthetic, naturally based antenna can be used as an antenna for the radiation of radio and microwaves as well. Part of the program that they would be developing with this, and it's also part of the original patents that I showed you earlier here. The concept is multifaceted. Not only can it be used for mind control, for example, which is terrible, and the control of weather, which is terrible if you're using it as a weapon, but additionally, they will be able to transmit. They do two things. They could block off an entire, let's say the enemy's transmissions, radio, television, whatever, completely block those transmissions off. And in the very wave that they're sending out to block everything else off, they can transmit their own signals on that wave. So again, from a military point of view, that's pretty slick. You can go into an area, block off all communications, and utilize that same wave to send your own communications on. So that part of it's pretty neat. But again, as usual, what we're seeing here is mankind in general, whether it's Russians or Americans, the bad guys running the business, and they end up using it as a weapon against us.
I would like to play football. I think I can be of help to someone for another 2 years.
He never got so much money to play. Gene Klein, the owner of the team, wanted him on the team because of his name and his reputation. He wanted to raise the consciousness of the guys on the team.
Just before John signed, he looked up. He said, "Are you sure you want me to sign this?" I think that would have been a pretty good time to decide that the Chargers were getting the John Unitas of other years.
I remember seeing him in that San Diego helmet with the lightning bolts, and I mean, that was like seeing some ballet dancer wearing, an ice hockey uniform. It made no sense whatsoever.
I think you only had to go like one series of downs into that season to decide that John Unitas was misplaced. On his first play, he took the ball, took a couple steps, and just tumbled over backwards.
He didn't have the arm any longer. He just didn't have it. He was at the end of a very long, obviously a great career.
As the Chargers stumble to a 2-11-1 record, an unprotected Unitas played 5 games, completing less than half of his passes. After the season, NFL Commissioner Pete Rozelle fined 8 Chargers and placed them on probation and a drug crackdown.
Johnny hated every moment on that team. He was on a team that was unlike probably any team he's ever been on from a character standpoint. Too many of the guys were on steroids. Too many of them were taking amphetamines. Too many of them.
It just makes me furious.
Building owner Wal Louie says he wanted police to arrest the demonstrators who occupied his 3-story building at the start of WTO meetings. He says they left a mess.
We're just cleaning up the mess right now. There's some human waste up there that we haven't removed, and nobody wants to touch it. We'll try to find an outfit to do that.
Instead of eviction, police asked housing activists to negotiate with demonstrators. Sharon Lee of the Low Income Housing Institute convinced the protesters to voluntarily leave the building, in part by offering them temporary housing in a private nonprofit shelter around the corner.
I think we avoided a major confrontation.
This is a failure of leadership.
No, my friends, it's not a failure of leadership. From the start to the finish and even after, the anarchists were housed. They were protected. They were not to be arrested by Seattle police. It's a staged, managed operation. And since Seattle, these same anarchists have been used in Washington, D.C. to create a state of emergency. For a day, they allow them to spray paint pig on police cars and attack officers. And then the police are released once they're at fever pitch. They are useful tools. to neutralize the general population's ability to engage in political protest. After the anarchists had put on their display for the news cameras, the authorities had all they needed to rationalize a total suspension of civil as well as human rights, publicly, in front of everyone's eyes. They started declaring that people couldn't have banners or posters or even stickers or buttons on their clothes against the WTO. Anyone who got in their way was arrested and shipped to a FEMA center, the Federal Emergency Management Agency. In direct violation of Posse Comitatus, had Delta Force on the ground from day one of the demonstrations and protest, continually integrating the local, state, county, and city police under federal command. This should be a giant red flag for any American concerned about their God-given rights and their freedom in this country. You see, for over 20 years, the Federal Emergency Management Agency has been building and constructing, maintaining concentration camps as well as the personnel to incarcerate literally tens of millions of Americans. It seems now, with some of the latest developments, they are attempting in a psychological warfare program to condition and control the populace so the populace will actually believe that all of this is needed to maintain the public safety. You've already seen the facts, my friends. All of the problems in Seattle, and yes, even in Washington, D.C. in 2000, could have been prevented. It's a handful of violent offenders offering the crisis so they can offer their solution. I would ask the police, why are you engaging in this? You know it's all stirred up and stage managed, as well as the military. Why be parties to this? Why be parties to destroying the country that your children are going to grow up in? Why? You can stand up. You can stop it. You can educate your friends and neighbors. That's the solution to this out-of-control government engaging in mass mind control and manipulation of the police, the military, as well as the general population. Break your conditioning.